Earthlings. You're listening to Slurmcast, a podcast for no reason. My name is Michelle Burlingame. With me are Tommy Roulette.
How's it going?
And Pete Woodward.
That's me.
Joining us today is special guest Robbie Puzzitiello. How's it going, Robbie?
Groovy.
Hey.
Welcome to
welcome.
Our House of Pod.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. Very much appreciate it.
And we just met you 10 or so minutes ago. You seem very genial, so hopefully this will go well. If not, the basement's where I put the bodies. Just
Okay.
people to come
I'm
find
sure
you.
I could get comfy down there.
So I feel kind of left out. All three of you went to meet Bruce Campbell yesterday.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
How'd it go?
I had a very good experience. I woke up super early to get in line you had to get a wristband and buy the book from Barnes & Noble in order to go back later in the evening, and then they would call up people like, it was like the first 100 people would go up and stand in line, and then it was the next 50 people, and then it was the next 50 people, and it just kept going. And I was number like 143, and I don't know where you guys were at, but
I was a full 300 people behind you, and I think Robbie was halfway between us. And
226.
Yeah.
So
my
a
God.
comfy middle ground.
Yeah, there's no way I could take out that kind of time to just for idleness.
I requested off work so I could go do it
yeah.
and everything because I really wanted to see him.
Did you ask him to come on the show?
I did not. It was a very
It was quick.
excuse me, very
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah.
Like before I knew it, I was done. Like you were waiting around and just wandering around Barnes and Noble, and then they were like, "All right, numbers like 130 to 200 or whatever." And then then I went up the escalator to the second floor, and then you stood in one line, and then there was like green tape, and then they said, "Okay, you guys next." And then we were standing there, and then they had some guy that would take you. They would actually trade you the book you bought for an autographed copy of the book.
So here's where things were weird for me, because when I showed up, I had to go upstairs at the Barnes & Noble, get my wristband, get the book, but then I was standing downstairs for like 2 hours. The person that I was standing around with, she ended up going, I think she was a full 50 people ahead of me. So she went up, and I was like, well, I guess I'll flip through the book. And my copy was already signed because they had accidentally given me a pre-signed copy instead of a blank copy. And I didn't bring any memorabilia with me to have him sign because I guess I just didn't realize that he was doing that. I thought it was just like the book and then that's it. But he was signing stuff. So, I was like, well, what's he going to sign? I have the signed book in my hands. Like, what's he going to sign? I don't have anything else for him to sign. So I was thinking maybe an employee had it signed because I didn't realize that the copies that they were switching out were pre-signed copies. So I went up to some kid at the desk up front, and I was like, hey, so this copy has already got a signature in it. Does this belong to somebody? And they just handed me, like an employee had it signed and set it aside for later or to take home. You know, somebody got to meet him before the event and got their copy signed, and I was just confused. But then they swapped it out for a clean copy, and he actually ended up signing my book, and then I bought a couple pop figurines that he signed one of those.
I still think you should have gotten it signed twice. Like that, I think that would have been better. You like show up and you're like, what?
Well, I think
Twice as
again,
rare.
monkey.
he wasn't personalizing things, but he did for some people.
Yeah.
I think if I had still had the signed book, he probably would have written something else in the book. So I didn't think ahead. I didn't think about that before I swapped it for the clean copy. But I did get my Ash vs. Evil Dead Ruby Pop signed also. So I
there you
don't feel
go.
quite as bad.
I mean, it's nice that you're altruistic enough to think I'm ruining someone else's shot at owning this, but I mean, it's kill or be killed.
Yeah, but honestly, I thought maybe some employee was going to go like, oh my God, you found my book. Why don't you stand aside and you'll get to meet Bruce Campbell later.
Oh, well, okay.
It wasn't completely altruistic.
Yeah. That's,
It was.
well,
I
okay,
had
so
I
you
had
were
an
having
idea.
a pipe dream.
I had
then.
I had a little. But what if?
And you got your Ash Robot Consortium doll.
Yes.
Signed, which was super cool because Patrick, who owns and operates the Robot Consortium, only made a few of those dolls, and they're awesome.
Yeah.
Go look up Patrick on Facebook.
Yeah, now it's truly a one-of-a-kind piece of art.
Good job, I say.
Yeah. He was. He made a little comment of that. He was like, "Oh, I've never seen this before."
Yeah.
And then he made a comment about how it was small, and he was gonna try to sign it. He did. It was fine.
I have some friends that they hand sculpt the book.
Oh, like
So
the Necronomicon?
They hand
Yeah.
sculpt the Necronomicon. So she took it's my friend and her boyfriend's my friend's sister. She took one of those books that her sister hand carved, and he was like, "Well, this is super cool," and was really impressed with like this handmade Necronomicon and signed it. And
All of this is giving me flashbacks to working at Borders, like in the early 2000s, which is the Nordstrom rack across from Barnes and Noble. Now, like
I remember when that was a Borders.
Yeah, I mean, now I was lucky because I just worked in the warehouse, which meant I showed up early and I left early, and I didn't have to deal with any other dumb bullshit. But if I ever went back there when they were doing events, like it was always just a madhouse. Like, I would not have been able to deal with it. I can only imagine because that Barnes and Noble is massive with the 2 floors and stuff. It just had to be like.
Yeah,
Exhausting.
it was weird because they didn't really have anywhere specifically to keep people. Because I was
Yeah.
thinking about that. I'm like, oh, it would have been cool if they did a book talk, but there was nowhere to like really facilitate that unless maybe they were to like rearrange an area, you know?
They probably have like requirements, like marketing people say that this shelf has to be here and facing 25 degrees toward the sun. I don't
With
know.
this many copies. Has I guess to try and bring it back to the topic of our actual show, has Bruce Campbell ever been on Futurama? Does
No.
he show up later?
I don't think so.
It seems like it would be a sure thing, you know, just like to pop in at some point and do like a little quick cameo.
He might be too obscure, but I suppose there's a chance that Simpsons could have picked him up at some point just because they've done everything else.
Maybe they did.
And he's one of those guys where he couldn't just jump into his IMDb page right now because it's just long and longer and longer. But
I just wanted to walk up to him and be like, "I loved you in Spider-Man."
I strongly considered bringing my Spider-Man trilogy because I'm sure he gets Army of Darkness and Evil Dead all day.
Yeah,
every
yeah.
day, but
yeah, it's actually, that's a perfect segue because in Spider-Man, he was a wrestling announcer and the Jumbotron was a man wrestling some kind of horseman. What the hell was that all about?
It was called "It's a Greek's Life." Or it's a Greek life. I don't know. 1936. There's no link to click on it
It was like
here, so I didn't go farther.
It was a centaur. I
Oh.
did look it up a little bit. So I think it's on YouTube. You can watch the whole cartoon on YouTube. I think most of these you can probably find on there somewhere or on some kind of, cartoon resource YouTube page.
That sounds so not fun.
what?
But I guess the cartoon's basically it's not our racism Bosco type
No.
stuff. It's just a general Mercury's dropping off his sandals with a centaur to be repaired, and then the centaur doesn't finish fixing his sandals, and then he tries tying ducks to Mercury's feet or something. It's really strange. I'm just reading the synopsis of the whole cartoon. I didn't actually watch the whole cartoon, but
I'm glad I didn't watch it,
Yeah.
first of all. And second of all, I think it does nothing but reaffirm my belief that the people making cartoons in the 30s and 40s were completely whacked out of their skulls on drugs.
oh yeah.
Yeah, definitely a different time. I mean, because cartoons didn't originally start out like necessarily for kids too, so I guess you could get things of all.
Oh, yeah. The Jumbotron discussions have gone into a lot of weird places. Many of them troublingly racist. Certainly all of them very violent. And then there's other stuff where it's just like the imagery is just like completely batshit.
Do they ever allude to the episode ahead, or is it just kind of arbitrary what appears on the Jumbotron?
There's times where something in the cartoon will kind of, sort of, maybe tie to the episode. It's not. I don't think it's an intentional thing whatsoever. But it's like, oh, this happened in that cartoon, and then this happened in the show. But it's kind of like you gotta kind of get there to find it.
And even then, it's like you can draw a connection between any 2 points if you you know,
if you try.
yeah, like, you know, it's some of them are just completely insane, and then some of them will pop up later even, so it's like the same cartoon maybe shows up 3 or 4 times, but different clips, so you wouldn't necessarily know that they're the same thing. It's all basically just something I do to get Tom mad, and he's been beaten into submission about it now.
Yeah, it's like the Simpsons couch gag, basically, because
Okay.
it's a different one each time, and then the ship crashes, and it's like, you know, a few seconds.
Until this episode.
Until this episode?
But we'll get to that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I think I know what you're going to bring up.
Amy, right off the bat, reinforcing her completely clumsy nature, but I don't...
It was so weird. She comes in on that party board and is
Yeah,
super
such a
graceful
Cool
and does
name for a...
she does like a little like plie thing on the board, and she takes one step and just right on her face.
Has the party board been brought up again? Or brought up earlier? Is that like a recurring
I think it
thing?
comes back later, but I don't know if it's been in any previous episodes that I can remember.
It seems like it would be super fun. I'd also probably kill myself on one because I have no balance.
It's basically a hoverboard.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah.
Would you call that surfing or hovering? She was in. I like the Great Rad Spot, not the Great Red Spot on Mars. She was in the Great Rad Spot.
Is that just her using her weird slang?
Splah.
Yeah. There's a couple of those that get dropped early. But the thing that, really kind of broke my heart early on was that Kiff called and then stayed on hold for 2 hours just, like sullenly waiting on a video call.
He's a sad sack of
Another
stuff.
hour, I would have hung up.
No, and it just...
thought about hanging up.
There's something about that just really... He's such an empathetic character because he's pathetic in his own ways, clearly codependent on Zapp, but like he really is a sweet and heroic character, and he just gets walked all over.
Some things came off me and clogged up the shower drain.
Yeah, and he's just back there like
what came
super
off
naked.
Of you?
There's something about his naked shower swagger that I'm trying. I tried to think of what it reminded me of because there's a very specific image that it recalls, and for the life of me, I couldn't remember what it was. Like I want to say Simpsons, but I don't think it's the Simpsons. It's like some other naked cartoon character like flexing in sort of a greasy way. But I don't. I mean, and
Like flossing the butt cheeks with the towel.
yeah, a little bit, but
Maybe
it's more.
Flanders when he's skiing.
That's
nothing
it.
At all.
That's it. Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Because Flanders in the bodysuit. That is exactly what it was.
Oh, the skiing bodysuit?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
stupid
Feels like
sexy
I'm
Flanders.
Nothing at all. Nothing at all.
it's interesting how well they are able to cover up the nudity. There was some interesting revelations in this episode regarding the uniforms. We can get to that later. But it was definitely something where you just feel even worse for him at that point because, again, he's just, well, I think he invites it. I think if Kiff isn't being abused, he doesn't feel comfortable and healthy. It's sort of like he's basically a masochist, I think. I mean, he's much more comfortable being abused because on the little parts of the episodes where he's not, like, he really just freaks out and can't handle, like, the freedom, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah, he definitely seems to kind of crumple, or maybe not even crumple, but like when he does rise to meeting a challenge, part of the joke is, like you said, he just kind of gets trampled on anyway. And they just put him back into where he started.
Where Zapp is going to just, overrun. But Amy, too. I mean, they've been in this long-distance relationship, and he's clearly, like, enamored with her. But once again, Bender is superfluously some other kind of machine where he's an answering machine here.
Why would you even have Bender as an answering machine?
Bender's got some bad jokes in this episode.
Right. And okay, so this is exactly the sort of thing where I just feel like this is dumb, and you're agreeing with me? Is that the case? You're not just going to say cartoon logic.
No, I mean, I get it's fine. Like, yes, cartoon logic, why he's an answering machine, but why would anyone have Bender as an answering machine?
They should know
It's
better.
like you could not use him.
Well, I mean,
That's where I'm at.
I almost feel like it would have been funnier if he was like the pager or something.
It wasn't really a funny joke. That
No,
he was
it wasn't.
The answering machine.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just trying to punch it up 20 years after the fact. But the book that Leela was reading, Great Machete Battles.
Very Leela.
Is that a real book?
I don't think so.
It should be. And the fact
I don't think
that,
there's been enough great machete battles to warrant a book yet.
But this is 1,000 years in the future, so it's possible. I mean, do any of you own a machete?
No.
They're only like $7
On the
in
record,
Walmart.
no.
I used to, but I don't.
What happened to it, Michelle?
Someone stole it.
Is it,
and then hacked
someone
a bunch
I
of people to
lived.
death.
Someone I lived with took it.
You couldn't even try and stop them because they had a machete.
was it
I just didn't
used in
notice.
a gang fight outside
No.
the foundry a few years ago?
No, well, maybe it's been a long time.
There is a Great Machete Battles Facebook page. There is a Great Machete Battles Infosphere entry, and then there's an entry for it in Unbooks.
So no, it's not a book.
No, but it should be.
Is Unbooks a list of books that aren't books?
Fictional book.
Yeah, the encyclopedia. Okay, I mean,
Who compiles that?
I've
Let's
always
just think of words together. Let me Google this. Nope, not a book.
I've always wanted to own a machete. I really should get one because they are shockingly inexpensive. You can go to Harbor Freight and get like 2 for $15.
Army
Yeah.
surplus, I think, is where I got mine. It was like an old Vietnam era machete.
What
Used?
Yeah.
What do you
It
need
was
to
used?
machete?
I mean,
sure?
it was just old. It was like not pristine. I don't know if it was used, but Army surplus, I don't think that stuff is generally,
I had a 7th grade teacher that pronounced it machete.
Why? That's the whole extra letter.
I don't know.
I had a teacher that pronounced tortilla, and then got really indignant when I told her that's not how you pronounce tortilla.
I can only hope it was a Spanish teacher.
No.
That would have been so good.
Tortilla.
I have a big question.
Yeah?
When coming up to
I'm already
wherever we
married,
get
Tom.
there. No, it's so they go to what is it? Nigel 7?
Yeah,
Is
Yes.
the hive mind of Nigel 7.
And why do they need a pill so big?
Because
Because they're a hive mind. It's a bunch
so
it's a bunch of people. It's like
I didn't even grasp that.
like
Yeah.
Unity and Rick
Right,
and Morty.
right.
It's a
But
hive
that means they
mind.
would just need a whole bunch of pills.
Well, that's what happens when you ingest it. It's probably, that was probably more of a suppository than a
was like a-
swallow pill, I'm
Yes.
thinking.
And then the other question I have is, how did Amy get into the pill without knocking all the little pill things out of it?
It was very messy. She could have.
Somebody had to have helped her.
It's probably Zoidberg.
I was gonna say, can we just explain away that Zoidberg helps in any unseen scenario?
Although, to be fair, if Zoidberg did help, there's no way it would have been as flawless as it was. So she could have gotten like Cubert or Dwight or somebody. Or even, maybe she had it all worked out. Amy's really smart.
I just turned the tables on you, Pete.
know.
You're trying to explain something.
I know. Look, the last time that happened, some really bad shit went down, Tom. I'm skittish. I'm sorry.
No, I just thought that was like my thought when she came out. I'm like, now how did she get in there
when
with
she, when she asked to go, it's probably one of my favorite lines in Futurama when the professor goes, "No, it's not a prom limo. We're a space delivery service. If anyone needs me, I'll be in the Angry Dome."
Oh, yeah.
That is
Yeah.
my new favorite Futurama quote. I totally had forgotten about it until I rewatched this episode.
I need one.
I want you to go. I want you to go to the bank and try to get a loan to build an
Build
anchor
an
room out of
Angry
your
Dome.
house.
Look, I just got back from. I drove to and from Iowa this past weekend.
So you definitely need an angry dome.
Yeah, I stopped. It was me. It was with my family. We were going out to to a family event, and it was all wonderful, but it's a long drive, and there's not a lot to see. And if you're 8 years old, it turns out you get bored really fucking quick, despite having iPads with videos and toys and all these other things. Like
Kids these days.
Look, we used to get shoved in the back of a station wagon facing backwards. So if there was a rear end collision, we were fucked. Or just in like the cargo bay of the station wagon, like splayed out, no seat belts anyway, none of it. But we do like 14-hour straight drives down to like South Carolina or Florida or something. Like, and if you were lucky, you had a coloring book and your crayons didn't melt when you went into the Howard Johnson's to eat your lunch, because mostly it was just like hours and hours of boredom. This is, I mean, I had downloaded movies, all this stuff onto the iPad. She has games on here, and like 45 minutes in, are we in Chicago yet? I'm like, do you see any giant buildings? No. Okay, we'll be there in 6 more hours. Are we in Chicago yet? I'm like, motherfucker. It just, by the end of it, like I totally needed the Angry Dome. I mean, I probably need it at least every other day. Baseline.
Not quite an Angry Dome, but I have been seeing videos for essentially, it reminds me of escape rooms, but they're just rooms that you can go and smash stuff.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
I mean, it costs money, but it's
I don't
probably really
care.
rewarding.
I don't care. And that's, I mean, I'm sure that therapeutically, there's going to be the people who are licensed trained therapists that'll be like, yeah, that's not good. But on the other hand, like, it feels good to break shit. Like, it is cathartic. And if it's meaningless shit, that's probably, like, I've got boxes and boxes and boxes of crap out in the garage that's like got garage sale written on the side of it. It's never going to happen. But it's like dishes and all these other things. Like, if I could just take a Louisville Slugger to that, and you get dressed up in like a nice protective suit with the mask on and everything. Like, are there any of those in Cleveland?
I suppose we could make one.
We could find out.
I mean, like, there's escape rooms and stuff here, isn't there? Or there was.
Yeah, there are a few.
I booked an appointment for like the opposite of that for this Friday. I'm gonna do one of those weird like float
Break into
isolation.
it room?
No,
Oh,
it's
okay.
like an isolation tank. It's a room with like a float tank in it, and you just lay, and it's like the water has
Sensory
salt in it.
deprivation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an isolation tank basically. So I'm gonna try that out. Hopefully
gonna
I
go
don't.
crazy.
Hopefully I don't freak.
How much does it cost?
I found a deal through Labor Day. I think it was like $39 instead of $79.
Worth
For
it.
how
And I've
long?
wanted to do it an hour. I've wanted to do it for a while,
What's
but
it? What is the purpose of it?
you just
I
there's
bet. What is it supposed to help you or do?
just relaxation,
Oh.
and then you're just floating. Like the water is the same
Left
temperature as
alone,
your body, and
in
you're
the dark.
alone. And
With your own thoughts. That's kind of scary.
I believe the purpose is so you can trip balls. I think that's what's supposed to happen at a certain point is you like
we'll see.
hallucinate by removing all sensory input. You're left with just your brain going to your own devices. But I agree, Tom. I think being left alone with your thoughts is the most terrifying thing that can happen to a person, especially if they're me.
Happens to me every night when I go to bed.
Oh, see, no, look, I got a whole self-medication regimen. I'll try and, play maybe a game or read some Game of Thrones or something to like get it to shut off. But I do have to take like some sort of a chemical hammer to my skull every night just to
Hibernative naptosis.
Yes.
as
Oh
they
my
would
God.
say in this
That
episode.
sounded so amazing because
Just press a button and it's
yeah.
there.
I mean, how are you guys with naps?
I love them.
It depends on the day, but they're great.
I love them too. I so rarely get to take them. As a child and even as a young adult, not really a fan. Like I don't operate on a whole lot of sleep, But now it's one of those things where it is just as if I can get a good nap in, like a good one, not like a wake up and feel all sweaty and shitty like less than an hour later, but like a good hour and a half just zonk. It's the most decadent thing in the world.
I don't know. That's a little bit too long for a nap for me. Like,
You think?
I just need Yeah, if I go too long, then then I don't want to wake up and I want to keep sleeping.
It takes me like 40 minutes to fall asleep, though. That's the problem. Because I'm not going to get wasted in the middle of the day and be like, oh, I'm ready to...
Right. See, that's also the other thing, because why... They say like a good, 20-minute nap is like a good nap or something like that, where you're not going into REM or something. And how do you, so you have just be asleep for 20 minutes. So how long does it take somebody to fall asleep? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it takes me a long time.
I'm the same way if I'm trying to take a nap. I have to feel the nap coming on. And then I can...
Yeah, I can't just lay down and take a nap. I can't just say,
I'm going to take a nap when I get home from work so that I can do this thing later. That won't work for me.
To be fair, based on your Facebook feed, I don't think doing this thing later is really a thing you do very much.
Not really. I did. You're correct about that. But I did. I went to Porco last night after the Bruce Campbell thing. And that is if you've ever been to Porco, you know that going to Porco and then getting up at 6 a.m. for work the next morning is not always easy.
That's abuse, man.
But I did it and I was fine. But yeah, I don't really go out all that often. I've been doing it more because I'm trying to not be forever in my house like
around
the old guy that
the
died.
Nuclear microwave.
Hey, that's the other house.
Oh, okay,
that was another. I don't have that science oven anymore.
Porco, for those of you that are outside of the Cleveland area, is it's a nice tiki bar where they make a lot of really strong and delicious drinks. They have food. I'm not going to recommend it unless you're really hard up, I think. I mean, it was fine, but the real star of the show
it's good. It's the drinks. It's not about the food there. The food there's pretty good. But
I didn't even know they served food there.
The tacos
it's only until a certain time.
They're acceptable. They're good.
But would you go to a tiki place for tacos?
I'll get them while I'm there, but I definitely don't think I'd go out of the way for a taco.
It wouldn't be a destination taco.
No.
Okay. There's to be fair, there's really only a few of those around here anyway. But
Taco Bell.
Yeah,
that's all I need.
Yeah. You gotta eat. No, wait, that's the other one.
Rallies?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, don't get him started on rallies.
When you literally have to eat or you will die.
No,
rallies.
No, or
you gotta eat.
Or when they send you a text message in the middle of the day to taunt and say, "Quit cheesing. Get a Checker Rally Burger with cheese small combo for only $1.99 at Checkers and Rallies." I mean, they know me. They know me well.
Those burgers are made out of dirt and Chinese newspapers.
So I don't care.
It's so bad. How can you like that?
You just made me love them even more. Yeah, I think the hibernative naptosis sounded like a delightful thing. There was also another set of really good exterior shots in this episode.
Yes.
So coming out of I think the thing that came up a lot towards the end of season 3, and I guess moving into season 4 now, is something's going on with their graphics where they're really like the water, when the establishing shot coming in at the very beginning, there's like that water in front of the Planet Express building that looked really cool, and then there was the this big space shot when they were leaving to go to Nigel 7.
They've got that 3D art.
The docking sequence was cool, and the Planet Express ship went into the Nimbus, is it?
Ship to ship intimacy.
Yes,
I mean.
and that's where the Jumbotron cartoons come back, because Zapp was watching
Was that
them.
the same cartoon? Because I meant to look that up, but
No, I don't think so.
But it was weird because he was actually watching a cartoon was watching a cartoon.
Yes, but they were I mean, I don't think it was the same one from earlier in the episode. It was definitely one we've seen before, or part of another. Like, I think there was recurring characters, but the fact that he's just like Shatner lounged out in the chair and then watching these old timey cartoons, which ties their universe back to ours.
Yeah, I guess so.
So I bet, I know this might have gotten cut out of an earlier episode, but I think, we're one detective munch away from this being part of the SV universe. That's what I think. Was Richard Belzer ever on Futurama?
No, I think we talked about that, and I don't believe so.
Yeah, well, you cut it out anyway.
What did Zapp say about
They
the
jumped
cartoon?
right out of their pants.
It's wait, was that
He also could be picking up a transmission from a different planet that just happens to have a similar cartoon to what our universe is.
No, because they pulled down the screen to pull it back up. That was the part that I loved. They had like an old-timey schoolroom
Oh yeah, you're
projection screen.
Activate glass window.
Yeah. And they do the yank down and then it kind of rolls back up.
That's right.
Which I love because it was really just like just he's such a creep. And I'm surprised that they weren't showing some kind of like porn on the screen too, like weird tentacle porn or something that they could have like gotten onto broadcast television with like under the censors. It was like some sort of weird hentai thing with like, you know what I mean? Like it was abstract enough, but him seeing Leela and just be like, oh, there's a very sensual disturbance in the force. Like he's just 100% creep all the time. I love it. I love how he's just. It's actually this is the first episode with him in it where I didn't miss Phil Hartman. And now that I've said that, I miss Phil Hartman.
Aww.
But that was really good, and so he basically they enter Planet Express. He crawls into bed with Leela.
So weird.
How long do you think he was sitting there, just like gazing at her in his repose?
I don't know.
I'd say at least within half an hour range is probably.
You think?
I don't know. It's hard to say.
I would say. I mean, I feel that we can equate Zapp's.
I feel like Nibbler would have known.
His equipment, his commitment is probably pretty similar to Kiff's. With the waiting on the TV screen. I think, for all we know, Zapp could have got up and like made some food and popcorn and hung out, like used the bathroom. Like he may have been there a while.
I think that's exactly it. Like I could see him being there for like 4 hours, just kind of you're trying to wake her up, but then when she just like shellacks him in the gut, his response of a little bit a little bit lower and a lot softer, which
He's such a creep.
I know, but like, I mean, I need to keep that in my back pocket sometime, just to have it ready.
For an episode with not that many Fry lines in it, like Fry is barely in this episode. There's a lot of good lines.
Yeah.
There are a lot of good lines in
that.
this one. There's hardly any Fry. He's got like a handful of lines.
There's not even really any Bender either.
Not much. And what there is of Bender is like,
Yeah.
Whatever.
It's not
right.
good, Bender. Was there a Fry line that was coming up that?
no, I
Oh.
just was thinking like there's just so many good lines. Another one coming up soon too. I wanted to bring up.
So when Amy and Kiff are hanging out in Kiff's little cubicle, did you look at any of the pictures of her that he had hanging up?
Yeah, they're like weird profile picture, like
Yeah.
her in profile, like
And
she's like fat Amy and
One
thin
with-
Amy.
Zoidberg.
One was Zoidberg.
There was one where she was like on the beach naked or something, but like you could see her. She's sitting in a lawn chair and like facing back, but there was no suit on.
I
But
didn't
they
see
were
that
all
one.
like he's just got them plastered. Like it's so. I don't know. Is it sweet or is it creepy?
In his sense, it's probably sweet. That's probably like the only pictures that he has of her, and he's just
All
to
of them out.
remind
All the time,
him of her.
and he's got like everything over
He's
the top.
sensitive. He needs to see her.
Yeah.
He really is.
And Amy is probably the worst girl for Kiff. Period.
You think?
This is true.
I mean, yes, but I think they are also. I mean, good together,
I mean, going back
or can be.
Going back to what we said earlier, if he was with someone who he didn't have to be anxious about, would he actually be comfortable or would he sabotage it?
I don't know. We should have a relationship expert on the show to discuss Kiff and Amy's relationship.
We should. We'll have to put that on the spreadsheet and then see if we can find someone to meet that description. Unless you happen to know relationship experts, do you?
No.
Zapp Brannigan.
Yes.
He's got it all figured out. So this is where I think we've had an argument about this in the past, but the holoshed is the reference to the holodeck on, or I guess the Danger Room on X-Men 2 is basically the same thing, where it's like none of it's there. It's the big empty room, and then you're interacting with it.
Yeah, but
the way
I
it
don't. The
feels.
Danger Room, you can't just like imagine. Or no, I guess it's actually the same because you'd program in anything into that room.
Yeah, he
and then
says
it would,
that he programmed in,
4 million
400 lines of basic.
for the pony. What was
Spirit, the pony I always wanted, but my parents said I had too many ponies already.
that? Yeah, that was really sort of the exact thing about her, where it's just like she still gets fixated on stuff, even though she literally has had everything she's ever wanted.
Well, I loved when they were going into the holoshed, and he's talking about how great the holoshed is, except when it malfunctions and the holograms become real. And she goes, "Well, that probably won't happen this time," which means it's about to happen,
And,
Like,
and that it's
absolutely.
happened before.
And that it has happened before. And every time it happens, Zapp Brannigan gets slapped with another paternity suit.
Do you think that's because he's been messing with it, trying to make it like extra sexy, and he keeps following it up and like putting in the command to make stuff real?
There's so many like missing gag reels that we could explore with Zapp Brannigan. There's so much behind the scenes that he could be doing.
Except I think he was basically a virgin before he met Leela. He was just
Like Johnny Bravo kind of.
yeah. And there's oh shit. I mean, I've been watching Wet Hot American Summer, the 10 Years After thing, and I forget. There's too many of them, so I can't remember anybody's names. But Ken Marino's character, who's supposed to be like the really jockey sexual bartender, but he's like a virgin.
Victor?
Yes.
Victor?
Vic.
Yes, yeah. So that's like, I mean, it's basically the same thing with Zapp, I think, until Leela gets sort of like, she's pity sex with him ages ago, and then he's like, yes, I've done the sex. But like, is this something where he goes in and then like, I don't
even want to imagine what he creates into his hollow.
Well, I mean, we've already
What's it
seen his
called?
bedroom,
I can't
his
call it
sexatorium.
Holoshed.
Holoshed.
So are Attila the Hun, Professor Moriarty, Eva Lincoln, and Jack the Ripper all also Star Trek references?
Yes.
Even
All of
Evil-
them?
Evil Lincoln is?
Well, I think Abraham Lincoln was in an episode of Star Trek.
So the evil Lincoln is
Evil
just
Lincoln,
a
I think, is
twist.
just because they're all evil, I guess. I don't know.
So is that how they do episodes, or it'd be like, oh look, Data's gonna be Sherlock Holmes, and we're gonna chase down Jack the Ripper or something? Is that like? I never delved too deeply into Star Trek.
Neither did I. I'm only aware on the surface of some Star Trek stuff.
Tom, anything?
Nope.
All right. Well, I mean, I like it seems like one of those things where it would all tie into that, but the fact that they all went Victorian except for Attila the Hun, which seems like a real wild card. But the interaction,
Those are the easiest things to program in the holoshed.
they just come up real super easy.
Lincoln, Attila the Hun, Jack the Ripper, and Professor Moriarty.
But the exchange that Zapp has with Attila when he has the like the laser blaster, and he's like, just where it's all like erudite, but also like unfrozen caveman lawyer too, where it's just like, don't point fire stick
And
at
Space Canoe.
yeah, but will cause explosive decompression, which it does because Zapp misses him and then everybody gets sucked out. But
Spare me your space age techno babble, Attila the Hun.
I mean, did you notice that all of them held onto their hats when they were getting sucked out? Like as they came out, they all had they're like making sure that their hats don't fly away. But
I
the
didn't
other,
notice that, but that's really funny.
I mean, but how does that? If the holoshed malfunctions and they become real, like what would the limits of that be? Like, would there be a point where they exceed the range and they kind of zap out, or are they real people and all of a sudden they're getting asphyxiated in space?
I don't know. They become real. Nothing can hurt you in the hollow shed unless they become real.
I feel that they must become real because they exited the hollow shed. It's not like the environment's left, you know?
Yeah.
So, because, I would otherwise have chalked it up to cartoon logic, but they got out and left.
I hate
so
cartoon logic.
I'm going to assume that they're real.
and then they just die.
They had like a reason, like they argued to not shoot the gun and get jettisoned out of the spaceship. So they must have had some stake in that. So some fight to preserve their existence.
That's more thought than I would have ever put into that, but it's a valid point.
I like it though.
You asked.
Well, and I guess then the other side of that is the moon that was created in Kiff's like lagoony romantic scenario was also real enough to plug up the hole
It did.
Yeah.
from the laser blaster.
Yep.
I just want to like throw out. I love this like that sequence at the moon because not only you mentioned there's some great visuals in the episode, but also just the subtlety of that joke with Kiff reaching for it and then it just slowly moves out and he just falls in the water.
And then it drops on top of it. And it's like solid.
It's such a good cartoony little gag. Like there's it's not too much. I think anyone could appreciate it.
It's almost like a silent movie gag. Like you'd see that in a Buster Keaton film or a Charlie Chaplin thing or something, but then the fact that it's like you'd expect it to be like a flat thing and it's actually globular and then just shows up getting sucked out into space and stopping things. This also clearly demonstrated that Zapp had like a flappy toupee, which was, I don't think that's ever come up before, but like they dig that Shatner hole even deeper where it just like, it flaps up and he slaps it down really quick just to hold it. I mean, it's all they can do to just make him more and more mortifying, like at every step of the way. and I think that's maybe, I think this episode in particular almost fleshed his character out enough for me to not be hung up on the Phil Hartman-esque aspect.
Well, that's good.
But like I said, I just
also
brought up an unfrozen caveman lawyer, and I'm really going to wallow in this.
Also, this whole thing, Kiff's glove falls off. That's the big part of this episode.
Yeah, and it that skin-to-skin contact thing is another one of those things from Worlds of Tomorrow. That's it all tie. I think this is like a sweet spot as far as those two properties. Is that what they call them now? Properties. They have the cartoon and there's a video game and all that. But the skin-to-skin contact, why wouldn't that have been... Well, okay. It hasn't been brought up before, but he also doesn't wear pants. So aren't his legs susceptible to this too? Or is it only
he even
hands?
said you could get it from a toilet seat.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's why...
Yeah, that's why he's got his own private washroom.
Yeah,
Then
and then that's
No,
why
he
Zapp
doesn't.
Brannigan has to get into
I think
the...
your toilet's set to stun, not kill.
Which that's such a good joke. I don't think it's something like we live right by a giant source of fresh water, so it's not like places where they're really trying to conserve it. Not that we're just like blasting water out all the time or anything, but like we generally, I think, in this area of the country have pretty good water pressure. And when I travel to places that don't, like it is severely lacking, and you get like the low flow toilets and things like that. Or now on this road trip I just took, prior to about 3 days ago, I would have hands down bet money on the fact that rest stops in Indiana were the most godforsaken places in the world.
I agree.
They at least along I-80, they have upped their
God.
game.
The last time I drove from Cleveland to Chicago was 2013 or 14. And I just remember I left Cleveland at like 2 a.m. to get to Chicago by 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Spent the day at a convention and then left again at like 6 p.m. So I just remember
Done that hike.
I got stuck in traffic in Cleveland for several hours, not going anywhere, trying to get out. And I just remember it being like super dark because it was in November. Doing laps around one of like the nastiest rest stations I have ever been to, somewhere in the middle of Indiana, because I was just about to fall asleep at the wheel.
It is. They have 100% up their game, and the new rest stops along I-80 in Indiana are some of the best I've ever been to. But they're also like super environmentally conscious, which I would not have expected from a state that Mike Pence was running up until a few months ago. All like, like zero water toilets and like it.
That's weird.
And
Zero water?
yes, they're like no
weird.
flush. I don't know how it works. Gravity, something. Maybe the porcelain is coated with some kind of like Europhobic, thing that just makes it won't stick no matter what you do. I mean, like somebody's got to go in there and scrub them down still, but like it was crazy. And there's at least like they're still building a couple like towards the end of the state by Gary, because who's going to invest money over there?
Yeah.
But seriously, like you could just go right across the border and check it out. Like it's pretty nice. They got restaurants and it's something else. I might go live in one. They're all dedicated to like historical people,
Like
war
Evil Lincoln.
photographers.
Hey,
Those
he
are the
was-
Illinois ones. But the I think the whole point of that was the dirty the water pressure and the stun and kill thing. So like when you go somewhere that has shitty water pressure and you've got to deal with like a bad toilet, like there's whenever I would go to Europe in the olden days for like rock and roll tours and things, like the plumbing was hands down the most fucked up thing that we'd ever have to deal with. And one of those, like there was this, I distinctly remember this thing because it just doesn't make sense the way it was designed. It was this toilet in the Netherlands that like, instead of there being the raised part at the front and the water in the back, there was a platform in the back and the water in the front. And when you would flush, it would push whatever was on the platform into the front, which
Weird.
weird, and not functionally designed well, because if you're in there doing what you're supposed to be doing, it's not pleasant for anybody.
Yeah.
I feel like we as a civilization don't quite have plumbing down yet.
No.
Like maybe we should spend some time researching and investing in our toilet technology.
It's been around for a long time, though. Like the Romans had toilets. I mean, it's at least a couple thousand years. But this stuff is like, the other thing would be like how to get hot water out of a shower. There'd be a box on the wall that I think, now if you get like one of those tankless water heaters for your house, it's kind of like that, where it just, as the water passes through, it gets superheated. And then by the time it gets to your faucet, you're fine. But imagine having a box like the size of a laptop on the wall in your shower, and you've got to crank dials that are like, egg timers and things just to get lukewarm water to not freeze. It was, great experiences, lots of stories. But to this day, I still think the plumbing is just not worked out over there. And they've been around several hundred years longer than we have.
Except the Japanese, they got it down.
Yeah,
Really
well,
good.
Yeah. So do you think that Kiff's toilet would be more like that? Like, are we talking like a Japanese super toilet with the sprays and the...
I'm sure.
Yeah?
They have to. They have suicide booths and...
Yeah, but like, if you go on an airplane, or even I guess the space shuttle or the International Space Station, like there's not really water involved. It's a suction apparatus that's taking care of things. Like,
But this is also 3,000 years in the future.
1,000 years in the future.
I mean, yes. 1,000 years in the future. I'm tired today.
Give or take a little bit. But that's I'm curious now. We'll have to look up on the infosphere, and by that I mean I'll never get around to it. But like, if there's reference to how the plumbing actually works on the ships, because the Nimbus is giant, it might have like its own gravity thing kind of going on. But
Who said about the toilet seat being the uncle?
That was another Zapp.
Oh,
They were talking about the the way that Kiff could get pregnant. He's talking about how Amy is his smizmar, and it's a little bit later because right now they're still in the Horta burn clinic, the sick bay / Horta burn clinic, which is also a Star Trek reference.
Is it?
It is.
What is Horta?
They were like I think a race of aliens that were like crystalline that had really hot skin.
Huh.
So like I guess the joke there is that like you touch one and you're burned.
You're burnt. Okay. I was wondering what that was. This was after Zapp went to the hollow shed to relax after the hollow shed became real and tried to kill them all.
Another great line. Other than some broken bones, internal hemorrhaging, and a partially barfed up heart.
Whose was it?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Whose heart was partially barfed up?
I'm gonna have to guess it's Kiff because he's the only person there that could potentially have more than one. Everyone else is human, or unless Bender is just...
Zoidberg wasn't along too, was he?
No.
He was back at the office.
Living in his home, which we find out where he's living right now.
Well, I mean, it could have been Bender's. He could have just had a heart,
That's true.
just a partially barfed up heart.
Let's say
And-
either Kiff or Bender.
It's like a completely 50-50 split there.
But at that point, they determine that Kiff is, in fact, pregnant. And Bender gets so mad because he's like, you stupid biologicals and your weird reproductive stuff. But, I mean, it's kind of crazy. But the...
No glove, no love.
you disgust me. Go on. That's really like... there was something I was just... I don't know, some kind of thing that I was engaged with that I clearly have no recollection of. But something like that where it was like, what you're doing is wrong. I want to hear all about it. I guess it's basically like what going to confession is. I mean, tell me all your sins. Go ahead. But there's this reveal that comes in here. Number one, Amy's super unhappy because she's young and doesn't want to be saddled with responsibility. But then when Kiff is lying on the bed, underneath his outfit is a pair of tighty whities. And you think those were regulation?
I didn't even notice that.
He's doing
I
like a
didn't
full-on
either.
beaver shot, but he's got tighty whities on underneath, where normally we all assume that Zapp is like naked. And Zapp still may be freeballing. That's entirely possible. I'd argue that he probably has on some sort of like international male
Are
thong
you
or
giving
something.
underwear
Yeah.
if you're in the armed forces, are you giving underwear?
Yes.
Oh, then they're probably
Regulation.
I
regulation.
feel like we've seen Zapp in his underwear at some point in the show.
We've seen him in underwear, but not in his uniform.
Okay.
Where,
We got a good upskirt in this episode.
yeah, it's pretty like,
Bold move.
yeah, he is not shy at all. But the thing where the professor creates the DNA, what is it? The matrifuge.
Yeah, that carnival ride.
He's like, I laughed at me when I invented this, but I showed myself. Like that's one of those beautiful Fry-esque lines where it's just like, I mean, the guy invented a smelloscope and a thinglonger. So for him to be like, I created this thing, but it's basically, I haven't been to an amusement park in 20 years. Do they still have things like the rotor?
Yes.
Is it still as dangerous and awful as it used to be?
Yeah, there was like an amusement park over at the Corn Fest. One of the rides broke down, a few weeks ago. So
A few months ago, that one at the Ohio State Fair
yeah,
killed some
so
people.
they're all still just
so-
as
One
sketchy.
person.
One person injured several people.
Yeah, that's one more than needs
Yeah.
to get killed
Right,
by a
I
carny
agree.
ride.
I agree.
Ugh, don't
I'm
watch
not.
that
I
video.
am not
Yeah,
at
that
all defending
Do not watch
fold-up
that video.
carnival rides.
Yeah, and that's going back to like the keepers. Like I know what that's going to be. I don't need to see it.
I had no plans to watch that video until someone posted it on Facebook and it like auto played as I was going through my feed.
Oh,
It's
Yeah,
just
it just
gruesome. It's too
happened.
much. And then I was trying to sleep later that night and I just kept seeing it in my brain. And I'm like not one to be easily like put off by something
No.
like that. Like I'm not queasy or squeamish, but that just like that messed me up. Like even if you think you're tough enough, like, oh yeah, I can watch that video, like whatever. No, don't do it. I don't.
I just remember I was never good with roller coasters. There was like a sweet spot when I was maybe like 12 or 13 where I'd go on them, but even then, like the super high or the super fast ones are not for me. I was always good on spinny rides, and this one in particular, this place doesn't exist anymore. It's like one of those, or maybe it does. There's a place called Conneaut Lake Park. It's way east, either just over or just before the Pennsylvania border. And it's like there's this big, old, shining-esque hotel that has no air conditioning, so it's brutal in the summer. And it's basically like a dormitory or a former insane asylum or something. Like, it is not a comfortable place. And they had like basically a state fair carny set up that just sort of plopped down and stayed there permanently. And we went there a few years when we were, like my family and a bunch of our other family friends would go. So it'd be like, 20 or 30 adults just sitting on the porch at the hotel getting shit-faced all day long, and then like 50 kids and just running amok in the thing. There's like this old-timey water slide where you'd sit on like a boogie board and slide down.
Sounds like Kalahari or something.
Yeah,
like that.
but there was a ride there called the Hellhole, which was,
hey, mommy, I want to go on the Hellhole.
I went like 100 times. It's the rotor, and so you'd go in and you'd stand against the wall, and as it reached velocity, you'd stick to it, and the floor would drop out. But then, the pro move would be like to get 90 degrees to the wall, either like sitting up or whatever. But it was still just one of those things like, this is not healthy. Like, this is basically giving yourself a concussion. It can't be good. But we went on it so many times. The last time we were there, which was, like I said, decades ago, the thing I remember the most is like they were getting ready for Cheap Trick to perform there. I'm like, this was like,
I love Cheap Trick.
Well, right. Everybody loves Cheap Trick.
I want to go on the Hellhole and watch Cheap Trick.
But this was like after, they had the resurgence in the late 80s with like the album that had the flame on it. I forget what it was called. It had the flame and the Don't Be Cruel cover, and they kind of popped up again. But it's not like they ever stopped. But this was like 5 or 6 years after that. It was not
when they were playing parking lots of dollar stores and stuff like that.
They were playing Conneaut Lake Park. I mean, it was not a good thing. But those sorts of things, like, who even designs? Well, actually, I think my brother-in-law is an
engineers
engineer
design things.
I think my brother-in-law is an engineer that works on shit like that, like roller coasters and stuff. And I always try to ask him about that, and then I forget to, because it's his job. It has so many other weird twists and turns.
Just like roller coasters.
Yes. And so Fry was not the mother. Zapp was not the mother. Zoidberg was not the mother. Amy was not the mother. And it ends up being Leela.
Zoidberg was just in there because he was living there.
Yeah. Zoidberg wasn't even on
Not
the
invited.
Nimbus. He got left,
Just
but
thrown
he was
out.
living in that the centrifuge, the matrifuge or whatever it was called.
I mean, it doesn't ever get used.
I don't have a home. That was like a weird Zoidberg line.
They're all weird, but
Yeah.
that's why
But
everybody
That's just
loves
like
them.
one of the weird, like the saddest ones. So that's when so they find out that Amy's not the father.
And they explain what a smizmar is, because that's terminology that's been around
she's
for
the
a long
one that
time.
inspired the feeling of love that allowed Kiff to get pregnant, but it was Leela's DNA that transferred into Kiff that actually got him pregnant.
There's a metaphor there for the modern state of the world that I don't want to go too deep into it, but maybe that's something Dan Savage would have some thoughts on, or something like, never mind. It's a whole other thing.
Yeah, let's not go down that road.
So Leela and Amy are sitting in the bar drinking some kind of sparkly slurm drink.
But those were so cool when they blew the
They
sparks
blew the
off the
sparks
top.
off the top. So this is when we get to see Amy using her wrist low jackamator.
Yeah.
And her calendar comes up and she's putting Kiff's baby shower on her calendar. And some of the funniest shit is on her calendar, like bi-monthly dimple rotation.
Lunch with, it was like, she had two different friends. She's like, lunch with this one.
Yeah.
Lunch with Molly.
Trash Molly with Tina. Trash Tina with Molly.
Find new friends. Recharge her bra.
Adopt all puppies.
Hang with Walter Koenig, which was another Star Trek reference.
Search couch for spare millions.
Pity party for the less popular. And snub all dark-haired boys.
Benefit for divorced princesses was one of the better ones, I think.
Rearrange teddy bears. Promote Mr. Fluffy.
Yeah. I mean, there's one that you missed. And this
Snub
is
all dark-haired boys. That's the other
I
one.
got that one. What is a girly cure?
It's a manicure, but for girls.
Well,
It's a girlicure.
but that's what I was wondering about, because a manicure is a manicure and a pedicure is a pedicure. Is this
Maybe it's just
some
a
sort of full
makeover.
body thing, or is it something like some sort of procedure?
I don't know. Pony aerobics sounds a whole lot better.
Was that on there?
It was on
Yeah.
there.
Oh, that sounds great.
And cuteness trainer. Extreme aromatherapy.
Green shirt day.
I don't
Important.
even know where those came from. Like, did they pan over or is there like a list?
Somebody compiled a list. There's only a
course they
couple
did.
that you couldn't tell what it was, but I don't know. Pausing it, I don't know how much you could see. You probably had to.
I paused it and got 7 or 8 of them.
Someone may have gone to the lengths to actually see, because she does it at first and you see it from behind. So someone may
Yeah.
have been anal
Right.
enough
Extra
to,
put on extra effort, because I'm so envious of people with self-directed time.
Then motherhood.
Which
Set
erased
calendar
everything.
for motherhood.
That that hit relatively close to home. The less for me, and more so for my wife, obviously, because she's the one who's experiencing motherhood. But she had some real funny ideas about how exciting her life would be, with child versus the reality of it, and it didn't really jive with and it's kind of sad in a certain way, because there were a lot of friends who just kind of like split because they're like, nah, we can't deal with responsibility. Fuck that. But it's not untrue, but it's still possible to not be completely beaten down by parenthood. Not completely beaten down by it. I mean, you're going to get beaten down a little bit, probably a lot. But that really was like, oh, this is maybe a little too close to home for me. But the baby shower, they were at Fry and Bender's apartment, right? So they were at Robot
Yes.
Arms,
Robot Arms.
and it was for a baby something.
It's true.
I think this is
It's unclear what the offspring is.
A mutant alien hybrid.
everyone we invited is here. Also Zoidberg.
So Zoidberg.
That is like a tried and true Zoidberg.
Yeah. He just chimes in and he's off. But the gifts were like Bender's baby booties. Again, going back to this whole concept of Bender being a child at some
Yeah.
point, because he's manufactured as a full-size bending robot, right?
They show
In
Bender,
theory.
baby Bender, and
They've shown Baby Bender, yeah.
later on when Bender and Bev make, well, I don't want to get too into that one.
You'll have more questions about all of this
Yeah.
as we go on.
This
Will I ever
comes
get
back
answers?
up. Yes,
Okay.
you will.
And no.
Yes and no.
I just the orphan basket, which we all knew what that was, but then they're like, "Is it for picnics?" And then
It could also be for
use-
picnics.
Yeah, just for Hermes to be able to like, no, it's not a total bummer. You don't really see babies in baskets very much anymore, except in photo shoots for babies. It's all contrived.
It's just a trope.
Yeah.
I don't think I was ever put in a basket as a baby.
There's worse places to find a baby than in a basket. So
I think isn't that like this a thing that Swedish people do, and it's like growing in popularity over here is that when you have a baby, you're sent home from the hospital with like a box of stuff, but then you take the stuff out and there's like a mattress, like a tiny little box mattress inside, and your baby sleeps in a box.
If it has a mattress,
It's safer.
pad, that
It's
sounds
safer
awesome.
than it's safer than a crib, they say.
Yeah, I mean, first of all,
you just tape it back up and poke holes in it.
yeah,
And then you
You'll
check
close
on it
the
in
baby
12 years.
into
you leave it at the firehouse.
Set it and forget it.
It's
Oh.
babies are really small and they don't need a lot of space to sleep. But that makes sense.
Maybe that's where I'm just thinking that's maybe where the basket thing comes from. Maybe babies lived in baskets.
Well, the storks had to bring them in something. So if it wasn't a bindle,
that's
it was
just like
definitely going to be a basket.
The bindle.
And I
sure.
assume when you leave a baby at a firehouse, you should put it in a basket.
No, you need to put it in a big rubber boot.
What if there isn't one available?
You're at a firehouse. You just have to take one off the wall.
No, I'm just mean leaving it outside of the...
Oh, you can't do that.
Oh.
And you have to protect it from the elements somehow.
That's
But-
what the basket's for.
Well, exactly. But then you need to have like a picnic basket would actually.
Sorry,
be
I don't
good.
know how the whole dropping babies off a firehouse goes still.
Not
Still don't
experienced
understand.
in that field.
Well,
huh?
we have to do that as like an experiment.
It's legal. It's legal in
Yes.
Ohio to you have to take
Yeah, we had
your,
a whole
yeah.
conversation about this one podcast, and one of our guests, I think, like, didn't even know that was something that you could or people could do. Or,
It was
like,
either
a real
that
thing.
or someone said that like in certain states they can be up to like teenagers, and he could just be like, yeah, I might be conflating different things. It's either something a guest of ours said, or it's part of someone's comedy bits that I've seen. But like apparently there are states where you can drop people off at the firehouse and surrender them like up to a certain shockingly old age. And then like I don't think you can come back and pick them up several years later or anything. I think that was
Just
kind of
kidding.
the point.
I'm ready for that kid now.
Yeah. Like fuck this teenager stuff.
But yeah, speaking of people not being ready for kids, Amy freaks out because her parents give her they trashed her party board and turned it into an ironing board. She cries and flees.
But here's the thing. A really nice ironing board is like a great thing to have. Like
She is not ready. She wants her party board.
She wants the party board.
You know, for it being the future, I thought the party board would have like legs that were like made out of lasers or the ironing board, like something with a little more pizzazz.
well, I guess with the Wongs, it would probably you'd expect it to be gaudier anyway because they're very like nouveau riche, kind of trashy.
The fact that it doesn't makes it even that much more depressing that it's just old school rusty because every single
it
ironing
creaks
board
when
in
you
existence
open it.
yes every single ironing board in existence does that when you open it up. They all do it.
I mean, like I'm actually probably due for a new one right now, but the thing, like just with the amount of travel I do and the amount of ironing I have to do in hotel rooms, like a shitty ironing board will just ruin your day. Like it is. It's because it's such a simple thing. It's like I need a flat, hard thing that won't burn, and it needs to be sturdy so that it doesn't fall over. And like getting those two qualities together in a hotel ironing board, it's like 1 out of 5. There's usually something messed up with it somehow.
Maybe they make good travel ones you could look into.
It's like one of those things where you just need to have the right tools. So like, yeah, you can make do a number of other ways, but it's not, it'll take 5 minutes to do on a good ironing board. It'll take 12 minutes to do on a shitty ironing board. And it'll take you 3 hours on a travel ironing board because it's so small and it's just, as you're moving stuff around, it starts getting wrinkled again.
Right.
That's why I just throw my things in the dryer with a damp towel, and it comes out unwrinkled.
Yeah.
But then does it smell like a towel?
I just
No,
hang
you throw
everything.
Thingamajigger in it.
I hate it all
A
too.
whatchamajigger or a thingamajigger?
The things with the thing.
Dryer
on the
sheet?
Thing. Yes, dryer sheet.
The whatchamajiggers.
The
The
thing,
off
the
Yeah.
thingy with the what you call it.
Yeah, exactly.
Kajigger. The Kajiggers.
Those kajiggers.
But the line that the Longs use to just nail this home for Amy is, the only surfing you're going to do now is under the big wave of responsibility.
So it is surfing, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, figuratively. But then Kiff saying that this baby will rend my loins in twain. Was
Twain.
just earlier on in the episode, he said, "Come thither," when he brought her to
Come thither.
to the Holland shed.
Oh,
And,
Kiff.
he's got just that subtle little lisp. He's so effete. It's really great. But I think this scene all wrapped with Zoidberg making the baby crying noise, which was terrifying.
Awful.
It was so weird.
Yeah. I mean, like, he makes a lot of weird noises, right? It's part of his
Yeah.
thing. Just, but
That was almost like the Ned Flanders Purple Drapes scream.
I don't remember that one.
It's when Marge becomes a realtor,
Okay.
and she somehow gets stuck trying to sell this house where someone was murdered. So she's taking the Flanderses through the house, and she hears this lady scream, "Ah!" And then she turns around, and it's Ned going, "Purple drapes! I love purple drapes!" Ah!
Oh, stupid Flanders.
Flanders.
Is this the first mention of Amphibious 9 as Kiff's home planet?
Think so? They go back to it a few times, I think. But I believe this is the first time because the grand midwife,
We see her.
you see her
She
often.
comes
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
They had more machetes, so I thought that the Great Machete Battles book was sort of foreshadowing into that, because they were just like chopping the shit out of the way to get there. Was there was like the giant poisonous Frode.
Bro.
Poisonous Frode. This I thought was the one of the dumbest Bender lines. He just makes the dumbest yo mama joke. Like,
Oh, what is this? A frog or a toad or your mama?
big fat mama or something.
Yeah.
Like that. It's dumb.
But was it the Hypnotoad that kind of poked its head up out? You don't see the whole thing, but it looked like the eyes sort of rising out of the water.
I don't think it was the Hypnotoad.
No.
No, it was
Probably
it was
something that-
purple.
Yeah. Something that
We could
looked like
always
that.
use more Hypnotoad, though.
Yeah, we've used it on this show when necessary. But the grand midwife's commitment to the actual ceremony, because she's like, I learned all this by rote. I'm not changing it. Like, that's we keep coming back to churchy stuff, I think. But
Smizmar's not there. How shameful.
did
I'm sorry, I'm probably just making you feel worse, aren't I?
the whole birthing sequence, I mean, like, Amy comes in at the end at the last minute to save the day and be with Kiff. That's
On
all
her
great.
party board.
On her party
On her
board.
party board, which she converted back. That's the whole thing. Like, she's an engineer. She's really smart. Like, I don't know why she's so despondent. She's like, yeah, I'll change it back. But is it you, or have I gone crazy with loneliness? Was such a
Both.
great and perfectly Kiff line. And then there's the birthing sequence, which reminded me of two things. Did any of you remember on Mork and Mindy where Robin Williams gave birth to Jonathan Winters?
I'm familiar with that.
I mean, it was what I mean, he basically did a sleight of hand act where he produced an egg from his chest, like a regular sized egg, and then part of the gag was
See,
like,
we're too young for
I figured.
for
Like,
Mork
I
and Mindy.
know
I've
of Mork
seen
and
it. Yeah,
Mindy,
I've seen
but
Mork and
yeah.
Mindy, but that's not part of my.
This was like, like, and actually, if you think back, it's kind of subversive, because it was like the opposite of the Cosby model, where it's like, oh shit, Rudy's getting old, we got to find a new baby. Queued it up. They are like, okay, well, we're going to make him have a baby, but it's going to be like a 70-year-old man. And so, like, Robin Williams as Mork had this egg, and then they created a nest, and the egg would get bigger and bigger and bigger until it was like the size of a refrigerator. And ultimately, like, Jonathan Winters was birthed as the son, because they do the Benjamin Button reverse aging or something. So that was how that all happened. So this kind of reminded me of that, because it's just like, whatever. It also reminded me of actual childbirth. Have you ever been in a room where that's happening?
No.
thanks.
No.
It's
I believe in like 5th grade health class we had to watch.
yeah, you watch the
but-
movie, but you, like at that point, there's way too many questions in the first place about what's actually going on, and then it's.
I don't think I need to hear about it.
I'm not going to talk about it in depth because that's probably one of like 4 things that would really, really, really not go over well if it came up around my.
It's a beautiful thing.
discussion.
It's a beautiful
It's-
thing.
Babies.
No. It's a miraculous thing. Beauty is not an adjective that should ever be uttered. It's
Well, isn't Bender's like taking pictures of Kiff like plopping out these tadpoles?
yeah, and I mean
Ew.
ultimately,
Click.
like how that's the whole difference, I guess. I mean, I guess maybe it depends on the size of Cliff's or Kiff's cloaca or whatever. Like if it was real tiny, then those coming out could still be harder. Maybe there's like a big egg sac or something that needed to like get rent. But it seems like
He wasn't wearing his tidy whities.
yeah. And then there
Obviously.
was like a lot of those little tadpoles. But I would think that
Some
those
of
would be
them had
pretty
one
easy to
eye.
come out. That was that was the big reveal at the end. It
Yeah.
was like, oh, they are Leela's, children or something. But and shit. And then after all of that prelude, like Fry Fry just sums it up. What a disgusting and beautiful process. That's birth for you.
I just like when the grand midwife says like, "I will take my leave now. I live here, so I won't actually be going anywhere. But you don't have to talk to me anymore."
Perfectly summed up her like disinterest and just getting through with the ceremony. It all means.
I mean, the whole snakes and bugs and things was a little interesting. I mean, is that... And Amy, asserts her motherly instinct by protecting the offspring.
And so does Leela
Yeah.
as the actual mother.
It's, with a lot of kicks and chops and machetes and whatnot. It was, I don't know. Like, I guess it all ended on that nice note with the blinky, one-eyed tadpole coming up.
And in 20 years, they'll grow legs and crawl back onto
Yeah.
land as children.
Very
And then maybe Amy will be ready.
Conveniently placed the amount of time for Amy to potentially be settling down. at
Right.
that point.
Well, I mean, that's the whole thing. Like, why wouldn't that come up earlier? Because she's all worried about the responsibilities. Like, they just have to sit in a pond for a couple decades. Like,
Kiff never really went into that.
Yeah.
I don't think he never went into that beforehand.
no.
Right. So I don't think that she was just thinking motherhood. She probably didn't even know what was going to happen
Why wouldn't she ask?
because she's Amy. She's
Also-
just afraid.
I feel if Kiff had gone into it, something would have happened in which someone interrupted him or walked over him or something would have probably happened.
That's a good point. He's wide open for it.
Amy was too concerned about how her life was going to be to even like think about what actually was happening.
I guess that's a good point. Fair enough.
Yes.
Yeah, so I feel like this is a pretty good episode to kick off the 4th season of Futurama. What do we have to look forward to this season?
Laughs.
Does the quality stay good? I guess here's the thing. We're at this point where at the end of the season was cancel event number 1, right?
After this season,
Yeah,
yes.
because the movies were the reboot to bring it back. Does it finish strong?
I think this is this the season where we get into Leela's backstory? I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say that judging from the titles of the episodes as I was looking at them.
Yeah,
so
it's
I
been
could
a while
watch.
since I've kind of dug into season 4.
It's
I wish I had looked at the episode titles because there's definitely some. I don't know how late down the road they are, but there's some ones that there's a lot of good, touching, personal episodes of Futurama, and this one really isn't.
Oh yeah, we do have the big one coming
yeah.
up.
Considering that this episode is like about side characters, it's really not bad. Like there's some good elements of like role reversal and parenthood. Like it is a thoughtful episode, but it's maybe not as standout-ish as some infamous episodes, but I'm not sure where they stand in the context of the series.
They're coming up.
There's several good episodes this season.
Okay, and it's a pretty short season. I think it's only 18 episodes.
It's only 18.
Yeah, it probably got canceled prematurely.
Oh dear.
But the last episode of the season is probably my least favorite of the whole show, which is unfortunate that
We
when
have
it was
that to look
canceled, it
forward
goes
to.
out like that.
Yeah.
But we'll get there.
All right.
So,
Yep.
but I think overall, this season has most of like the top episodes for people.
So we're hitting an apex. Good. We can start hemorrhaging listeners then after these next 17 episodes. Perfect.
Hopefully not.
Yeah. Hey, so on that note, thanks for joining us, Robbie.
Yes,
thank you guys for having me.
Do you have anything that you want to plug?
I'm not too sure. I maybe not so much stuff that I want to plug, but I did 4 years of college radio, and I have a video and production company called Family 13 Productions here in Cleveland. And I'm kind of trying to get back into podcasts. I've never done podcasting, but I'm.
When's the next issue of Cooney coming out?
Oh, yeah. I do a comic book called Cooney. It's about my great-grandfather, who was the head of the homicide squad here in the 1930s.
Oh, so, okay. Like Cooney, like the Irish name, not
Yes.
like a raccoon.
No, yeah. He's a real person, yeah. So,
It's about a raccoon that solves crimes.
Yeah.
Now that I would want to read.
Yeah, that'll be a spinoff. Yeah, we're working on a Christmas issue of Cooney, so that'll potentially be out, on family13.com or on Comixology, and hopefully I'll be back for more Futurama though.
So that if people want to find you on the internet, is it
Family 13 Productions.
the number or spelled out?
13, yeah.
Okay.
Or Robbie Puzz, or I'm not a hard guy to find. It's all out there.
All right. I guess, people know what to do at that point.
Click.
Maybe. Yeah, click. Buy. write a review.
Go do the
Say
thing.
hi.
So good first episode as a host, Michelle.
Yes, thank you, Michelle, of course.
Good job, Michelle.
So you'll be hearing her a lot more
Every week.
every week.
Get used to it.
Shit. On that note, we can be found at slurmcast.com. We can be emailed at slurmcastpod@gmail.com. You can give us a call or text or a multimedia messaging service message at 216-438-1077.
That's correct.
We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter and Instagram at slurmcastpod. And you can write and review us in iTunes. It would be great if you did.
Find the link, buy T-shirts.
And the T-shirt shop at TeePublic. We will be following up on that very
We
soon.
did have somebody that made a design that's interested in having it sold in the store. So anybody else, let us know.
Yes. Other than that, we will be back to talk at you next week. So thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.